Welcome back to For This Reason podcast, where we bring you informative people that educate you and teach you, and you can take lessons from their journey to implement into your own journey. Today, our guest, we've got Junior, who's a young South African entrepreneur who's reshaping how small businesses access financial protection. He's the founder and CEO of EntreSure Africa, pioneering digital insurance platform dedicated to transforming how business insurance is afforded and accessed by SMMEs. Welcome, Junior. Let's maybe start off by breaking down the type of insurance that you're in, because obviously people think about insurance. There's the big market, especially in African countries.
So essentially, what people really need to understand is that in this country, one thing I love, sometimes the red tape does frustrate us.
Your leadership style as a CEO, as a founder of your business, what's your leadership style?
My leadership style, I believe in empowering people. I believe in empowering my team.
What does it look like in 10, 15, 20 years from now? What's the future of insurance?
Well, the future of insurance is...
What are you trying to build at EntreSure?
So we're trying to build, obviously, a specialist firm that will enable a lot of our smaller SMMEs, entrepreneurs, and startups to get more accessible insurance, first and foremost, business insurance, and in a much more simplified manner, and also build an insurance experience that literally helps them and enables them to run their businesses more efficiently. We strongly believe that risk management, proper risk management and risk transfer is pivotal to making sure that SMMEs survive beyond the 5-year mark.
Being such a young man, people would sort of say insurance is seen as this old people's game, or, you hear of Old Mutual, you think hundreds of years. Why insurance at such a young age for yourself?
First and foremost, I'd like to start. I grew up in an insurance family. So my father started his first brokerage in around 2003. And I would say I grew up hating it. For some reason, I grew to love it when I eventually did my master's, an international master's in insurance. And while doing that master's, I wrote a thesis on the survival of intermediaries in the digital age. And a spark hit me, and I just said, you know what, I can literally turn this into a company. I've seen some of the issues that a lot of SMMEs have, and I've seen some of the key focus points that a lot of our traditional insurers have, and the pain points that obviously they don't want to focus on the smaller guys because it costs the customer acquisition is too costly. So I looked at that and I said, okay, this is an industry I know a lot about. And myself, I've been in business since I was 16. So I'm more than in the perfect position to come up with a solution. So the key point was that in conclusion in my thesis, I said, obviously you need to build something that's a digital first mover, which allows you to then distribute at a much cheaper rate. And then now the accessibility is much easier. So essentially, insurance is an old man's sport, but technology is allowing us to come in as young guys. And who better to come up with solutions for the new age than somebody who has literally grown up in the new age?
Let's maybe start off by breaking down the type of insurance that you're in, because obviously people think about insurance. There's the big market, especially in African countries, that thinks funerals, first. Then there's obviously vehicle insurance. The type of insurance you're in is for businesses, right? Maybe break it down for the viewer wondering what type of business qualifies. What is that SMME that is able to get it?
Yeah. So, the common myth, and it's something that we've been working on at EntreSure about debunking the myths, where people think their businesses don't qualify to get insured. The truth is, every business qualifies to get insured. And right now, with some of the products and some of the partners that we're bringing on, there's some amazing underwriters who have now even worked on products that will allow us to insure spaza shops, just for simple thefts up to 10,000 Rand on their stock, or stock losses due to fire, and so on. And no business is too small. And when I say no business is too small, I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm Junior, I'm a content creator. I've got a 50,000 Rand camera. I've got a computer. I've got an iPad. You know, I travel with some of this stuff. Tomorrow, God forbid, I'm shooting somewhere and an unfortunate situation happens and my equipment is stolen. My business stops. So, in that essence, the assets that belong to your business are what I've named in the beginning. Those assets deserve to be covered so that when an unfortunate incident happens, at least we can somewhat place you in a similar position that you were in before. And now we're talking about someone who only has like 3 items and so on. So it doesn't matter how small you are. Every business, as long as you're making revenue or you have assets and you're operating, is exposed to risk and it needs to be insured.
So for you, insurance is a risk management and it's necessary for every single small business.
Yeah, I believe it's necessary for every single small business. It's necessary for every single business that is conducted. I always joke about it every time I say, people always think about insurance last. I say, the moment you make your first R1, risk has already entered the door. So you need to have thought about that because you're already starting, you're investing your time, you're investing resource into that. So you need to have a certain risk mitigation and risk transfer mediums in place. And that's where we come in, trying to also not only, I'd say we don't want to sell insurance. We want to give you an insurance experience, meaning, number one, we educate you on it and why you need these things, and then tailor make the package that works for your specific business.
Talking about SMMEs, small, micro, and medium enterprises, what is the sort of smallest turnover business per year that you take and the largest turnover business that you take?
So, I mean, when it comes to the smallest turnover business, we're talking, I'd say, the turnover is neither here or there. We can take them as minimum. We can take you on even if you're making 100,000 a year. It's more of an asset basis. So I can tell you the cheapest premium we've written was $300 a month. So that's how, and we can even go, even with the new Spaza shop stuff, we can even go lower, to your 50s, your 100s, and so on, depending on the risk in it. In terms of how big we can go, revenue-wise, our biggest client is no longer an SMME now. They are more, and they're in EME now because they just breached the 100 million mark in there. But when we started with them, their turnover was about 3-5 million.
For those that don't understand, just break it down in terms of the different brackets of what you're called in business and based on turnover.
Pardon? Yeah.
So in terms of like small businesses, we're looking at anything from 100,000 going up.
Yeah.
And then if we are over 100 million, do you still insure or do you focus only on?
So if you are over 100 million, we still insure.
Okay.
But, what we're saying is that the call to action is getting more of your 0 to 20 million guys insured because they're the guys who really think of insurance as an afterthought. The guys above 25 going forward, in most cases, they really have no choice but to have proper insurance in place. So we are really focusing on educating and getting in the guys that are still between 0 and 20. But I mean, in terms of insurability, the sky's the limit.
Very interesting. I mean, where did the insurance bug really bite? I know that you worked for your dad as a young man and he had a brokerage. But what was that process like? When did you discover that, okay, I could actually do this and I enjoy this?
I think I was 4 years into the insurance industry. Truth is, the insurance bug really bit me when I was in Italy, when I was doing my master's. Because I've always loved tech. I've always loved technology. One of my earlier companies was in digital consulting, and I think we were too early to market. We're just a bunch of kids trying to teach people on how to digitalize their processes. Everybody looked at us like we're crazy. But when I was in Italy studying my master's, I really got a better understanding of the role that insurance plays in business. And how far you can really, how far you can really take this entire thing. I started getting to understand that even some of the biggest companies that we look at, they somewhat even diversify into insurance as a way to grow their revenues and so on. And also understanding the role that insurance plays in how global corporations survive and how they mitigate risk. And I was like, no, man, this is a very interesting field. I was looking at it from the outside. Now I'm inside and I'm in the back. I'm like, I want to understand more about these mechanics and then develop a solution that I can turn into a business. So it really hit me there. And the way that they taught us how insurance, you can look at it as an art. And literally, it blew my mind.
Wow. Let's get into it. I think let's get into the art of insurance. So you've used some terms that obviously our viewers would love to be educated on. You've used the term broker, you've used the term underwriting, and these are terms that people hear but don't fully understand. Let's break it down. Perhaps if we had to look at the insurance hierarchy or an insurance table, what does it look like? Where do we start and where do we end off?
All right. So the insurance hierarchy, let's say at the top of the top will be people that most people never hear of. So you've got the reinsurers. I mean, these are the global guys who insure the insurance companies. So you got your Munich Re, Swiss Re, Berkshire Hathaway, you've got Hanover Re, and so on. And then you bring it down.
Berkshire Hathaway, that's Warren Buffett.
Yeah, so
Okay.
people don't actually know that Warren Buffett's actually built the fifth largest reinsurance company. So Warren Buffett's holdings, he has major holdings in insurance. Yeah, he was a pioneer in that space. People don't actually know that. It's hardly talked about.
So reinsurance, you're basically insuring what other insurers have insured.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Then you've got like your Lloyd's and so on. Lloyd's mostly holds your marine stuff. So all the cargo, they split it up across the world. And then you bring it down to your traditional insurance. These are the names that you know, like Hollard, Old Mutual, Santam, and so on.
Why would we go from reinsurers and then we go to insurance?
Insurers.
Okay.
Which we also call underwriters.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I see.
So that's an interchangeable term. So insurers, underwriters, it's basically on the same level. So these are like your traditional insurance companies. They have full-on licenses. They retain some of the risk and then move most of it back to the reinsurers. And they obviously put a lot of money on the line there and build products. And then after, obviously, the underwriters, you then get what we call UMAs, which are underwriting management agents. So underwriting management agents would be a company, right? Like, how can I put it? A company like what we call VUM and CTU, they do taxi insurance and so on. So they come to an insurance company and say, look,
taxi insurance, we'll come back to that.
Yeah, they come to an insurance company and say, look, we're a specialist in this market. We can design a product for this market. Can you back us on this? Put money behind this, and then we're going to go right, and then they do that. So they specialize. So these are guys who specialize in those products. And that's where, as EntreSure, we want to technically end up for the small business side as an underwriting management agent for small businesses. And then you come down to where we're currently playing right now, which is what we call the broker intermediary space. So in this space, there are various agreements that you can have in place. You can merely just be a guy that just sells, or you can be an intermediary that also offers advice similar to us and also offers a distribution medium for products that are owned by insurance companies and underwriting management agents.
Okay.
Yeah. So obviously the scope on the broker side becomes much more diverse. There are some guys who are just merely focused on just sales, and then we offer the complete bouquet. So you never really have to actually interact with anyone else besides us, because technically we're really building towards the UMA route. Yeah,
I like that. You really helped us understand it. Maybe if we're looking at products, because you said we've got the reinsurers, we've got the insurance companies, we've got the boutique agencies, and then we've got the brokers, right? And then the brokers with then sales and everything else. Maybe if we're looking at the product basis, in terms of product, because I've heard you use that word twice now, what does that look like when we talk about an insurance product?
So essentially an insurance product, how a product looks like is you would come, right? You have a business and you have a business case. So essentially an insurance product differs. There are what we call specialist standalone products where you have cyber insurance, you have public liability, you have, I2 has some amazing specialist products like Art Insure, Connoisseurs Insurance for vehicle collectors, and so on. And then you then have other comprehensive business products. So they would come, an Old Mutual would come and say, we have an SMME product, which then allows you to insure most of your business assets, which includes your cars, includes your business electronics, it includes liability. So we pack that all into one. But that product would essentially, most products on the market right now are what we call multi-mark. So multi-mark means you need to have at least 3 sections. So you can't just come and say, I want to insure a microphone. You need to have a microphone and then say, I want fire cover and I want liability. So essentially, when we say a product, it's then how this thing is structured for your business. So some underwriters will say our product allows you to insure business vehicles up to 5 million. Others will say we can only go to 2 million. So it's just those little tweaks that they make in between. And then, we call it a product.
Very interesting. I think looking at that, one would then wonder, what does the back end look like? So I've taken an insurance product and you've explained to say there's underwriters, there's a whole hierarchy. Once I pay my premium, how does that premium flow in terms of that hierarchy?
So in the hierarchy, essentially, let's say your premium is 100 Rand, right? In most cases, let's do a simplistic one. Let's say you've got us, you signed up through EntreSure, and we've placed you on an OMI product. Between ourselves and OMI, we have a standard intermediary agreement where obviously on vehicles we're taking about 12.5%, and then on non-motor stuff we're taking about 20%. But essentially on that 100 Rand, already the 12.5% is there. So OMI would collect the 100 and then the end of the period pay us the 12.5%. So in most cases, they retain the rest of the premium, then they pay over to reinsurers whatever their agreement is, because they have what we call treaties. So each insurance company has its own different treaties with the reinsurers. We're mostly never really privy to that because that's their own internal dealings. How they then deal with their risk mitigation there is another way. So we essentially get paid off that 100. We get the 12.5% or 20%, and then they keep the rest. But you are allowed to obviously levy an additional fee. So I can come and say, look, for Mpho's business, I think it's complex. I'll add another 20 Rand as an admin fee because we're going to run a lot of admin. We opt not to do that because we want to trickle down as much cost savings to our clients as possible. So we try by all means to make sure that we don't levy any additional fees. Our business is lean, it's agile, it runs purely on that commission basis. So that 12.5% and the 20%, that's what we run on.
I love that. I think what I like most is that unlike most insurances that are just calling us every day, you're actually doing interviews, explaining to people about the process and you're advising them. I think that's a business value add that's very invaluable. In terms of insurance, I mean, one would think Uber came and disrupted the model because there used to be taxis, meter taxis, taxi bosses, etc. And Uber connects directly the user with the transportation. And basically they take their fee, right? Yes. Would one not maybe say that insurance has that too many middlemen in between? Is it strategic in terms of the FSP licenses are letting a lot of people that are capable not be able to do it? Why does it feel like there's a lot of processes in between?
So I mean, contrary to most industries, the reason why the insurance industry is so tough to disrupt, the regulations are pretty heavy, and rightfully so. You're dealing with a lot of risk and a lot of people's assets. The barriers to entry are pretty heavy, and look, a lot could be done to open up, the entryways, but also looking at what it really takes to build a fully fledged insurance company. I mean, we're in South Africa where I think we have about between 5 and 10 big insurance companies in the country that are like brand names. And these guys are running on, I mean, bank balance sheets that are, yeah, exorbitant. It would take forever for us to get on. But the key thing in insurance, where we identified that the disruption is much easier to come to, is where they have inefficiencies. And this is something that I obviously was touching on in my thesis, that they have a lot of issues when it comes to distribution. So traditional insurers, just like the taxi industry, they would have, I'd say, they would have a lot of, like, the customer acquisition costs a lot because of the traditionality of the business model. So essentially, in the past, they'd have to send out a broker to go assess the business and get the necessary information. So imagine you're leaving head office of Hollard in Pretoria to go to Mamelodi to write just the premium of 300 Rand. Whereas with EntreSure, we then allow them to write the same policy, but the client never needs to leave their premises, and you never need to leave your office. So you're removing all that travel cost. So the disruption can only come as a complement. So the only way we can do it is to complement the pre-existing value chain. Even with the other incumbents, you look at the companies that have raised a lot of money in this country, Pineapple and Naked, which are some benchmark names right now in our industry, but they play on the other side, on the personal line side. When you boil down their business model, it's still the same. They're still intermediaries. They're brokers, essentially. But their tech enables them to distribute the insurers, the traditional insurance products, much easier. So, for example, Naked would be doing the Hollard product bouquet, and then Pineapple now doing the OMI product bouquet. So it's just not viable to go full on, because I mean, just to register for a full on license, you'd need at least 100 million, and then you need to match up whatever. So for every 1 Rand that you write, you'd need maybe another 1 Rand or 1.5 Rand in capital sitting there. So it's just not viable. So the best way for insurance, and I think all of us have realized this, is that we'd rather complement the traditional insurers, help them distribute and help them innovate. Because I mean, these are big moving cogs, and we just need to, the machine is already moving. We just need to get there, help them move it much faster, much better.
I mean, as a young entrepreneur myself, I sort of still want to push to say we would want to see, young black insurance companies right up there. But I understand your rhetoric and I understand your method. Maybe just for people that are watching, because a lot of times people think, okay, it's a young startup, I'm insuring my business. What if they don't pay out? Because they don't understand that actually there's a whole backing behind it. Maybe just to explain that, to say when people get insured with you guys, those backings are there, and their assets are safe because you've got that backing.
Yeah. So essentially, I mean, what people really need to understand is that in this country, one thing I love, even though sometimes the red tape does frustrate us, but it also works to the benefit of not only us, but also the clients. Number one, you can't sell insurance without being registered with the FSCA. And also just getting the licensing and everything, you have to write particular exams, and you have to prescribe to certain principles. For us, we also have obviously the partnerships with the insurance companies, the underwriters, and our clients always rest assured that Number one, we don't collect any premiums. The premiums are directly collected by our underwriting partners. Number two, we don't retain any of the risk. The risk is then retained by obviously the bigger underwriting partners, and then they also obviously sell it off. So you can rest assured that yes, you're signing with EntreSure, it's a young company, but we have the backing of all these bigger corporates behind us. And also, as a client, you have the peace of mind to know that you have the bigger corporates in the back, but you have the benefit of working with a young company that wants to make sure that you have the best experience. So you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting the backing of a big company, but you get the personal experience and the the digital insurance experience of a young startup. You don't have to wait on a call center for 5 hours because there are 100 people on the line or so on. And for us, it's a value add. It's a win-win for our clients. They get to get the best insurance experience while still knowing that their assets are fully covered.
I mean, you've studied. You did your what was your degree in?
I did my BCom at UJ, and then I did a master's in insurance and risk management in Italy.
Cool. Now, I wanted to talk about that because having studied a master's in insurance and risk internationally, do you find that all countries follow the same sort of insurance patterns, or are there other countries that do things differently in terms of insurance?
No, they all follow different insurance patterns. I'll give you an example. I think that two markets that are somewhat similar, but not exactly. So the UK market is a bit similar to ours. That's why it's easier for us to interchange and so on. It's just that with the UK market, the brokers also have access to, obviously, they're able to syndicate much easier. When we say syndicate, it means they're able to then break down the risk and sell it off to much more insurers. Whereas in South Africa, I'd have to go through just a traditional house like Santam or OMI, and then they can break it down. So over there, the brokers and intermediaries actually can go directly to Lloyd's and say, look, Lloyd's, we've got 100 million rand worth of risk. Give 10,000 to give 10 million to these guys, 5 million to these guys when the risk reaches this point and so on. So they are able to go and do much more complex work. And that's what I studied. So down here, it's a bit simpler, but I'd like to call our market more insurance infants. That's why we want to educate more, because the customers don't understand. In Italy, it's a completely different ballgame. The big insurers do the game. They do the work. Okay. And if you're a broker, you're basically an agent usually for the big insurers.
I see.
So it's a completely different ballgame. The USA, it differs from state to state. So what the regulations that are probably in California will probably be completely different in Texas. So you will find that as EntreSure, I'd have to have 6 different licenses just to operate in 6 different states. Whereas in South Africa, you get 1 license, you're operating throughout.
Very interesting. I mean, we've sort of seen, South Africans come forward and talk about insurance, because insurance sort of became very commercial. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, it was a very formal thing that, someone's going to see the person who deals with the insurance. And we sort of started seeing in ShopRite, would see funeral cover, Ackermans, Jet, and stores commercially. What sort of happened? What changed that insurance has now become a commercial product that is accessible?
So I think over the years, what most of the traditional insurers realized is that they need to actually work on bringing in more efficiencies in terms of customer acquisitions. So I'll give the example with funeral, right? In the past, I think between 1990 and probably 2003 or 4, so if you ask any of our parents how they signed up for their funeral policy, they'd say a guy came in a suit with a briefcase, and they were signing a paper. You get me? So now you'd have this guy traveling around. I mean, I'm from Zanini. Let's say one guy would travel around the whole of town knocking on people's doors. It costs time. It costs money. What over time, the industry then realizes that, look, where can we go where our customers are already going anyway? So you say, okay, at a supermarket, we can leverage the brand equity of a ShopRite. Cool. Put the ShopRite branding there. The customer runs there. We've plugged in our platform there. Straightforward. Same thing, I'll give you an example with a product like another funeral product. I don't know if you remember the Kaiser Chiefs one.
Yes, yeah.
That's tied to the membership. So you already have the customer. You already have the process. You have their information. It's just an add-on. So there's really technically not much more resources that you're dedicating to acquire the customer. You already have a pool of around 4 million guys. Even if the conversion is 15, 20, 30%, you're good. So they've just been working on those efficiencies, and it's something similar to what we're doing right now with business insurance, is to say, how do we then bring in efficiencies using our digital platform? How do we then acquire customers much faster rather than having a call center where people are sitting the entire day bugging business owners? Business owners are dealing with serious issues. They're solving payroll issues and so on. But if you can get them in the moment where they are just going on LinkedIn and they're like, oh, we see this company. Oh, I can get a quote. You're already getting them where they were anyway. The person was on their phone. And if they can get the quote on their phone, the acquisition becomes much faster.
So the aha moment behind your insurance company is that SMMEs would need to be educated and get them where they currently are.
Yes.
In terms of your experience with the market, did you find that SMMEs were uneducated about insurance, could not afford it? Or what was the big thing that you found once you started going into that market?
So, two key things. They saw no value in it. And number two, they believed that they didn't need it and couldn't afford it. Which, obviously, the key solution to this is education. So that's why we're on a roll to educate how insurance is a companion for your business and how it actually is imperative for you to have proper insurance in order to survive, not only in the current business landscape, but going forward. Because the more you grow, the more risk comes into play. So for us, it's always been, let's teach them where the value is, get them to understand. Once they understand that, then they can sign on.
In terms of insurance and its risks, because I think there must be a lot of risks that go into actual insurance for the companies that do insurance. Mm-hmm. What have you guys found some of those risks? And how do small businesses sort of mitigate for that?
So look, in business, a lot of risks that we've seen, and most commonly is, it's your theft. Theft is a real big thing. Liability is also a big thing. A lot of our restaurant clients, they have a lot of that. And some of them are valid, some of them are not. There's this slip and trip scams that people are always trying to. Yeah, but fortunately, we're always on the lookout. And then obviously on vehicles. Vehicles is also a big thing. And then also on a lot of equipment, we have a lot of guys on board that obviously are in the IT space. We've got guys that are in the media space. So we have to make sure that when something happens to the equipment, a camera breaks or there's a laptop that's stolen or there's a data breach, we're able to push and be on board as fast as possible.
And in terms of, you've now been in business for a while, and now you're leading. Your leadership style as a CEO or as a founder of your business, what's your leadership style and how does it align with the industry that you're in?
So, I'd say I've been very fortunate that obviously I grew up in an entrepreneurial home, witnessing my father start multiple businesses, witnessing a lot of my earlier day mentors build a lot of different businesses, and also a lot of people in my circle and my friends. And I tend to like learn a lot and study a lot. My leadership style, I'd say I believe in empowering people. I'm not an authoritarian. I once tried that in one of my earlier businesses and it just didn't work. So, as of late, and especially when we grow, I believe in empowering my team. As I sit with you right now, I mean, our team is working around the clock, running the various claims, underwriting, and so on. And I sit here without a worry because I know they're completely capable of running. My phone is not buzzing, it's quiet. The team is on it. So I believe in upskilling my team and then allowing them to run and grow. Mistakes will happen as long as we're learning from them. And, we sit as a team, and I have a pretty much open door policy. All my team members have access to me. We have obviously our centralized team chats, and then we also have our private chats where someone will come and say, look, I need your assistance on this and this, or I think I messed up here. And the way that I basically always respond is more to educate. And I've found that that also helps in the long run because they come to you now more with problems on a more proactive rate. So they're not scared when they realize, hey, we might have an issue there. Then we sit and we plan it out. And then in some cases, they also come to you and say, I think we can improve on 1, 2, 3. And I love seeing that because then I know that, look, they're on the ball. I've done my job. It's that. Because essentially, my ideal idea is I impart my knowledge to the team and we all move together. And one of these days, I feel like they'll probably be more expert. They'll probably be more of the experts than I am in this field. And then I'll know I've done what I needed to do.
That's a great leadership style. In terms of tech, I mean, you've spoken a lot about how you're using tech in insurance. What are some of the interesting tech stuff that's going on in the industry? I mean, there's AI now, and there's all sorts of things. What are some of those interesting things that?
So some of the key interesting things that have been happening, obviously, in the insurance industry. Number one was geospatial locationing, which is a great thing. Making use of satellites to now basically assess buildings. So I could be sitting here in Joburg in one of our offices, and there's somebody with a building in Kurman, and we're able to then have a look at it based on the coordinates, say, oh, this is where the building is, and then take it a bit deeper and look at the land composition around the area, and then you're able to then assess, this is probably the risk that's around this area, and so on and so on. AI has been a big thing also. AI has helped literally comb through a lot of the data that was just sitting there dormant. And it's also, assisting some of the newer incumbents like us to say, look, in the past, our traditional underwriting partners have been sitting with this data. They couldn't do anything with it. How do we then look at what they've collected over the years and say we can build products in the future and start doing that and planning and predicting where the risk is going to go in terms of business insurance and so on. On the other side, on the motor side, you've got obviously predictive maintenance and telematics has been around for a while. But right now, with the new AI models, they'll just take it a step further because cars are just now basically moving computer boxes. Soon you won't even need to fit a normal tracker because a car is a tracker in itself, So it's things like that are happening. From a buildings perspective, you've got, fire detection mediums that are being placed right now, and monitoring systems. So it's an amazing time, but I mean, everyone is still treading very carefully because of legislation and so on. But it's an amazing time in insurance, especially for us, because it allows us to give a much more detailed message to our underwriters of what's really going on down here, because we're interacting with the clients every day and we're collecting the data, and now we can make more sense of this data.
That's very interesting. In terms of, being an entrepreneur and the way that you lead your life, people always want to know what are some of the habits that have allowed you to still continue? Because entrepreneurship is not an easy journey. So what are some of your personal habits that you've incorporated?
Well, golf, number one. Golf is a very important thing. As stressful as it is when you're on a golf course, you're able to de-stress a lot. My morning walks are very important. For me, my journey in faith, my faith journey is very important in keeping me sane, and my routine and my commitment to obviously being in church every Sunday without fail actually keeps me sane. The other parts is, I study philosophy. I study Stoicism. I find it to rather clear the mind and helps you calm the craziness. Because, as an entrepreneur, your mind is always running. You're always thinking what could go wrong. You're always trying to plan ahead and so on. So it also helps calm that. And yeah, the morning walks are also amazing. It's just you and nature and God, and you literally can solve a whole lot of problems. But yeah, and also just engaging a lot with other industry experts, not only insurance guys, but I'm grateful for my circle. It's filled with a lot of amazing business guys, and our sessions are always amazing. We get to talk, learn from each other. And then, when you're in a community where you realize, hey, I'm not the only crazy person, and then you realize, okay, maybe there's some way we can survive.
Makes sense. If you were, looking at the insurance industry at the moment, what does it look like in 10, 15, 20 years from now? What's the future of insurance? Or what do you think is the future?
Well, the future of insurance is obviously tech first. And we're looking at more of a centralized distribution media model. I believe what I'm seeing right now, I believe that there are going to be a lot of more smaller players entering the ring. However, the bigger players are probably going to decrease and focus more on specific niches. That's where I see the industry going in about 10 years. I believe most guys will, let's say an example, one of the big insurers will say, look, we're just going to go heavy on motor. This is what we're just going to do. Others are going to be like, okay, we're going to go really heavy on liabilities and specialize all the way through and so on. So that's where I'm seeing it's going to move. The bigger guys are going to move more into the specialist fields, while the smaller guys will work more on distributing those products and moving them around. And it's just going to be more data orientated. So I'd say people need to get ready to drive properly because the data that vehicle manufacturers are also collecting, some German manufacturers are already partnering with big reinsurance companies and sharing data to build insurance models around that. So when we're living in rental, how can I say, a subscription-based world right now. So essentially, whichever company you're going to subscribe to get a particular asset is going to have insurance embedded in it.
Very interesting.
So immediately you go lease a vehicle. So I won't mention the vehicle manufacturer, but when we were doing our masters, they were actually exploring that in their leasing space with Swiss Re, that whenever you lease their vehicle, insurance is going to be embedded there, and they're going to sell you the product as part of the lease. If you look at it, it's a German company, has heavy presence in South Africa. They're really pushing their own financial services and centralizing their dealerships. Soon enough, even in SA, when people are leasing vehicles, it's going to be embedded there, and they're going to be watching your every move. So insurance is just going to be more data driven. And also, obviously, fraud is going to get harder to commit. A lot of guys were committing a lot of fraud. So when it comes to fire detection, product specialization, investigation is going to be way more, I'm saying it's going to be much simpler for them to catch out people, because now we've got satellite surveillance everywhere, real-time data. Yeah.
That's very interesting. I mean, looking at the future of surveillance and people being watched everywhere, I think a lot of people get very nervous about that. But it could also benefit those that are doing the good stuff, because at least they'd be able to get lesser premiums.
Yeah.
In terms of companies that have gotten into insurance and disrupted models within insurance, especially with the whole marketing thing and, all the different adverts that we're bombarded with. Naked automatically comes to mind, because you're driving down and you're seeing this billboard and you're thinking, okay, what does this mean? What do you think is the perfect way that is correct to engage with the customer? Is it the intrigue bombarding market? Is it the call center route? Is it what sort of models do you believe insurance companies should be using to engage with their customers?
So, I mean, I'll speak for our side of the niche. I mean, for example, where Naked and Them play is a highly competitive, price sensitive part of the market, where literally you need to always remain top of mind. On our side, it's much more specialized. So the way that we believe is the best way to engage is more from an education perspective. First, make the customer understand the value and why they need this, and they'll take it. Because essentially, remember, in the business insurance side, you're selling them something that needs to complement their business and also helps them survive certain storms, which will come. It's business, So we can't do call centers. We actually are heavily against call centers. We find that call centers, I mean, as a business person myself, I would hate for a call center agent to call me and tell me about the risk my business is facing. First and foremost, I don't know who you are there in the back. I don't know if you're a specialist in business insurance or not. Hence, for the longest time, in our industry, especially the business insurance side, they still had brokers physically go to client sites and meet them there so that the credibility is there. So when you then start by educating them, you've already built that credibility, because you're letting the customer know, look, I know what challenges you're going to face. I know what risks you're going to face. And I'm the best person to help you get covers in place for this. And then you let the customer decide from there on.
Very interesting. I think to close it off, I mean, there's so many young people that are watching you, that are supporting you. What is the message you'd sort of give to people that are wanting to be entrepreneurs, trying to push? What inspirational message would you share with them?
So I'd always say, focus on delivering value. Don't start a business by saying, how much money are we going to make, or this is how much we're going to make. Find the perfect value proposition for what you want to do, build around that, and trust me, people are going to come and you're going to make the money that you need to. The moment you deliver value, people are going to come.
Wow, I love that. Congratulations on the great work that you're doing. We wish you all the best. And we're behind you. Great products and great value you guys are bringing in the market.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us. And yeah.